I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast episode number 131. This one's with Michael Giles, and we talk about him becoming an art professor. I've known Michael for a bunch of years and really appreciate him for coming on. If you'd like to learn more about his work or see his art, go to fieldhat.com, fieldhat.com, or give him a follow on Instagram at fieldhatstudio. I really appreciate Michael for coming on. He's great to talk to, really easy to talk to. So we had a good time. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at @FeralGiant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. I always started talking about Game of Thrones. Okay.
Game of Thrones, what?
Yeah, because I still have not seen one episode.
You've not seen one episode of Game of Thrones?
No.
Do you have it?
No, I was going to point, you held up Goonies.
Oh, yeah.
So are you a Goonies fan?
Oh, I am a huge Goonies fan. That's one of my favorite movies.
Do you know there is now a movement of a lot of people saying, you know, Goonies sucks?
Well, there are idiots out there. I know this. I mean...
They're like, well, I watched it too late in life. I was like, how is there a too late in life for Goonies?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I suppose if you're like... As if you come into it as an adult, I suppose it's a kid's movie. Ultimately, it's a kid's adventure movie, so I understand that. But I don't know. It seems to me that it's got everything you need in a movie.
Yeah,
especially for kids. And I think me as a viewer of movies, I try to put myself in those characters anyways. So I don't see how you could not relate to these characters. It's like young love, nostalgia, it's basically little kids reminiscing about the good old days while they're little kids, So even if you're like an adult, you still can reminisce about your good old days. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so that movie, what's the other one? George Lucas, about the kids driving around. Why am I blanking on what it's called?
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti. So it was so wild. I grew up watching all those films about all these guys who had a group of friends that they grew up with. I didn't really have that, and because I hung around my dad and my uncles growing up. So then it was like my junior year in high school when we could finally start driving. Maybe it was the year before, because I was a little bit younger. So it was two of my friends who were a little bit older. They were able to drive. And all of a sudden, we were in the middle of a summer where we were driving to this exchange, going to the movies, They used to shut down the old city, WIMZ did, on the 4 streets, and had all the restaurants come out and set out samples of their food and would have a band playing. Why they don't do this? Still, it's
do that all the time.
Yeah, and it was like a summer night. We went and saw the movie Fear with Marky Mark and Reese Witherspoon.
I think so, yeah.
And listening to Bush.
Yeah.
And
Great
it was,
band. Great band.
It was just like, this is, holy shit, I'm living, this is the Goonies.
That's it. That's exactly it, you know? And I think what those movies capture is that, I don't know, it just really gives you that, it's that adventure that you kind of think you want and you don't realize you're having at the same time, you know, because it's exaggerated. You know, we all live through those kind of adventures with our group of kids, our group of friends.
Yeah.
I did growing up. You know, we had the whole neighborhood would just hang out together and ride bikes and all that. So it seemed very true to life to me at the time. Yeah. But, you know, obviously we didn't have pirates to worry about or Italian gangsters for no reason.
Or John Matuzak eating Baby Ruths. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyone who says it's a bad movie can shut the hell up, I think, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm also of the mind that I was like, also, you don't have to be a kid to still have those times. Like, there was a friend of mine, Christine, that we grew up together, and this was like six years or so ago, that I found a deal on Kayak and bought a round trip ticket to New York for $150. And I was like, I saw the deal and just bought the ticket, and it's like, I'll figure out everything else later.
Yeah.
Can't pass up. Excuse me. I hadn't seen Christine since high school, and went up there, and we just spent the entire day together. We started out like in an antique shop with the woman she was dating, who was much younger than her. I was like, good job, Christine. Good job. Good job. Look at you. And then went to some barbecue place in Brooklyn and bounced from bar to bar. And then the weirdest thing was her best friend's husband was a guy, him and his brother came up from Mexico, and he was working as a cook in one of the kitchens up in Brooklyn. So her best friend couldn't hang out with us, but him and his brother did. So we went to this shithole bar that was cash only, and we're sitting in the back, and they had piped in cricket noises. And he's sitting there like, what the hell is this? I was like, oh man, brother. It's like, I'm going to say a word to you that you're going to not know what the cicadas. It's like when you're in the South, this is your soundtrack, man. It's the best.
Sitting out back.
It's the best. And he was just like, I don't know, man. It's too noisy. He's like, I can't get used to this. And I was like, all right. And we kept talking, and I told him this stupid story where I can't tell I have a Southern accent because I hear it in other people. He's like, I can hear your Southern accent. I was like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I've been here a long time. I can hear it too.
But I was like, it's because I know people in Maynardville that I need subtitles.
Oh, goodness, yes.
I
drive through Maynardville every day.
Oh, yeah.
And when I have to get out at the gas station or whatever, sometimes I'm like, here's my money. I don't know what to do at this point.
Yeah, I'm a good day. You doing good over there?
Oh.
How's you and your...
Speaking of that, I'm sure you've watched Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And everyone gives Brad Pitt so much shit for that accent. You know, you hear, like, what is he doing? What is going on? And I'm like, he is talking like he is from Maynardville, Tennessee.
He is.
It's like, that is exactly what half those people sound like. And I'm like, I've told some of my friends from up north, it's like, no, that accent is spot on. It's not even, it's not a joke. It's like, that's the way people talk. They're like, that can't be real. I'm like, I'm sorry. I've been there. I've been to that auto parts store. I've heard him come in.
Oh yeah. I think I fell out of my chair sitting here watching that film when he, because he kept saying, now I speak the best Italian, and he speaks the second best, and he speaks the third. And then when he actually goes to speak to the guy and he goes, buongiorno, I fell out of the chair and couldn't breathe.
That's one of his best parts. It's just one of his best. Yeah, maybe it's because we have a local connection to it in a sense. So, but
oh God, buongiorno. That still makes me laugh. So I told that guy, I was like, but I can kick on my Southern accent if I need to. Because the first time I went to New York, a dude came up to me in Times Square and got in my face. I guess a homeless dude, a schizophrenic dude. I don't know what was going on.
That happens in Times Square for some reason.
Yeah, and he was a bigger dude too. Like he just found the biggest dude and came at me, and I just let him talk for a minute, and I was like, Bubba, I reckon we're fixing to have a problem. And the guy just patted me on the chest and walked the hell away. And I told that to that dude, and that dude kept going, reckon, fixing to. And his brother's sitting there like, you're an idiot. just like picking up. So then we go away, and it was like, this sounds like a Knoxville thing. His baby mama's new husband and had a kid, so they were having a christening. And it was above a bodega in Sunset Park. So he took me to a Mexican deli thing up in Brooklyn or Sunset Park, and he was like, now this is going to be heat for your white system. I don't know that you can handle this. And it was a torta.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there eating it, and I just look at him, and as I'm eating it, I take the hot sauce, flip it open, and just start pouring the hot sauce on it. I was like, I was born in East Knoxville, motherfucker. Pour the hot sauce. He's just like, what is happening? Who's this giant man? So we went this walk up, and we turned the corner, and it's Christina and I was like, we're the only white people in here. I was like, also, we were like, there were 1, 2, 5 of us that could speak English. Yeah. No one else. There was a full mariachi band with the guy with the accordion had bullets on his bandolero or on the straps.
The straps, yeah.
I had no problem with being the only white people. I was just like, how did we get here? Like, what is happening? Like, but it was the greatest.
That's when you took a good turn.
They tried to feed us, and I was like, I ate all of that torta. I'm dying. And they're like, are you sure you don't want? He was explaining. He was like, it's like no, and I was like, they're like, do you want a beer? I was like, I'll take a beer.
That will do.
And I sat there and drank that beer. And there's this app called Untapped where you check into your beers. I checked in that beer. That was the 1,000th beer. I was like, I will never forget where I had my 1,000th beer. And all the kids kept coming up to me, and I was just like, hi, how's it going? And all the moms were just like pointing at
yeah.
Like, this is the greatest. This is the most awesome thing ever. And the band's just killing it. And we sit there for a while, and then it's like the guy was like, all right, let's go. So we left, and I met the father of the baby that had been christened. He was a super nice guy. Yeah. Did not speak any lick of English. Yeah. So I was like, but this is the best. Big smiles. Everybody was happy. I got hugs. Like,
yeah, there you go.
It was the greatest. Yeah. But we went back to that bar, and 2 things. That dude was like, I can get used to this. The cricket sounds. It's like, aha, I got you. And then him and his brother left. As Christine and I sit back there, I was like, could you imagine we'd ever be sitting here? Because we went to Fulton. It was very rough. Yeah. And she was like, never in a million years did I think we would be right here right now.
Not what you expected.
Nope. Never thought we would get out. Never thought we'd get out. Like, it's crazy. Good Lord. That's my long way. I don't even know what started us on that path, but
Goonies.
So but I had that kind of day with her.
Yeah.
Where it was just
an adventure.
I was just down for whatever.
So like, you got to embrace those days, and they're never, you never really, sometimes you can't tell when you're in them, and sometimes you can, and you just got to roll with them. I think that those are, I think as we get older, they get fewer and far between.
I think as we get older, we try to plan for them. I think you can't plan for those days. No. You got to let them happen.
Yeah. You got to be open to it. You got to have fun with it, and you just got to have a good time. And that, I guess that, once again, getting back to that idea what the Goonies is about. It's that idea of, that freedom, that experience and openness to it.
Yeah.
So,
well, thanks for coming on talking about the Goonies for 14 minutes. I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. I can do 60 more minutes on it if you need.
I keep hearing that they want to make a sequel. And I was like, you could actually do a very good sequel right now.
You think?
Because I think a lot of those...
But isn't that just Stranger Things at that point, though?
Well, I think it... but I think what you do is you tie their kids into it. And
right.
But I think it's all the actors in it are really good actors.
Like, you got Brolin and
Sean Astin. And the guy, Data... He's back to acting now.
He took a long hiatus, but he's done acting again. I think he's going to be in the new Indiana Jones movie, right? So, and of course Martha Plimpton, right?
Yeah.
So you could totally do.
Yeah. The only thing you'd be missing is Richard Donner, who directed it. Like, you would have to get somebody like James Mangold is doing the new Indiana Jones. Is like, let that man do whatever he wants. I think I heard the other day that Lucas and Spielberg have officially like stepped away. They're like, we're just going to let him do what he did, because what happened with the last one, God, here's film nerddom. Frank Darabont, who wrote Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, Walking Dead, he wrote this great screenplay, and Spielberg was like over the moon. They were going to make this great movie, and then Lucas came in and bucked it all up and was like, nope, I don't like this, and vetoed it, and that's why the Crystal Skull happened. And so I think from what I've heard, Spielberg and Lucas have stepped away. It's like, good, let somebody actually do what they want to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, those two guys are giving us years and years of happiness, but sometimes you got to step away. You know, you've got to.
Well, to not lose my bona fides, Frank Darabont was a huge writer on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show.
I like that show. Yeah,
he made sense for all that. I think he even wrote the opening of the third film,
the River Phoenix part.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
yeah, because that was basically just a Young Indiana Jones short. You know.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. So we'll pivot from movies. Thank you, everybody, for making it like 16 minutes in of us talking about.
I will talk about movies all you want. You know, I don't think I'm quite the film nerd that you are, but I've got my opinions.
I can give you, if I gave you homework of, I think both these are 80s films. Explorers. Have you ever seen Explorers?
Yes, I remember. I don't remember the particulars of it, but I know I watched it.
That would be a good one for your kid. Your kid would probably love, because
he's getting at that age right now. See, we showed him Goonies. He wasn't that impressed, but he was a little bit young, I think, at the time. A little bit young to really get into it.
So Explorers is Ethan Hawke's first film and River Phoenix's first film.
Right, yes.
It's the one where they build a spaceship out of a tilt-a-whirl.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. I have seen that movie so many times. That was my favorite film growing up. That one, and there's more of a grown-up film. There's a film called 3 O'Clock High that I tell everybody that it was, my buddy the Todd and I call it HBO staples, where it was stuff that they just showed on HBO all the time. And that's another one I have watched.
I saw that one a few times at my friend's house because I wasn't allowed to watch R movies. That was an R movie, I believe, right? So
it may have been, because it may have been before PG-13 was a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to remember, PG-13 didn't come out until like 1985 or 6?
5 or 6, something like that. Yeah.
It's got a lot of cuss words in it. What am I thinking?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was an R movie, and I do believe I saw it at my friend's house on HBO, because that's where I could watch those kind of movies without my parents knowing.
There's another podcast that eventually I'll release called Big Man, Big Fan, where I talk about people's favorite film with them. And I always say, fantastic. What's your favorite film? And then what film do you think is the biggest sleeper for you? And I was like, I'm going to give you 2 weird examples for sleepers. I think Castaway and Moneyball are both sleepers, because while they were critically acclaimed and made a lot of money, no one talks about them anymore. And they're 2 phenomenal films. But for me,
Wilson up there, yeah.
But for me, 3 O'Clock High, I think maybe my favorite film that's a sleeper film that most people don't know about.
That's a great one.
Yeah. So I have to have you on that podcast to talk about that.
If you want to waste people's time with that, I'd be more than happy to do that.
We'll be on that one. It's like, okay, an hour 3 of talking about Goonies. There's one guy that came on that talked about, he was like, my favorite film used to be Rocky 1, and then I got married, and Rocky 2 became my favorite film because of how Rocky and Adrian are in the second film.
Oh.
I was like, Rocky 2's like number 6 for me. What are you talking about? Like, it's way down there. He's like, no. He's like, it means a lot more when you're married, like the 2 of them together.
I need to check that out then. I haven't seen that since probably the 80s. So
Yeah. Okay. Where are you originally from?
Where am I originally from? All right. Well, I was born in Venezuela
Okay.
and lived there till I was 5, and then we moved to Ohio, Baltimore, Ohio. Yes,
Baltimore, Ohio.
Baltimore, Ohio.
Where is that on the?
That is in Fairfield County, which is basically just barely southeast of Columbus. It's a county over, so it's basically the Columbus metro area, so to speak. But it's still very, very rural. Very, especially back then, it was very much rural, very country, very flat, very, very small town. About 3,000 people. Like every Midwesterner, I will tell you how many people were in my graduating class, 83, because it's always a spitting contest with Midwesterners. We're always trying to see who had the smallest graduating class. And,
you beat me because my graduating class was somewhere between 103 and 108.
Oh,
But it was wild because the freshman class my senior year was 1,200 kids.
yeah, because it's a big. Fulton's a big school now. Right?
It's a bigger school now, but
Yeah.
it was it's also like in that 103 to 108, we probably had 10 kids that had been another grade above us. They kept
At some
failing,
point,
and
yeah.
there were 10 kids that had failed and were still fresh.
Yeah.
I was looking up because I knew the Abercrombie and Finch headquarters are somewhere around Columbus, but a little bit outside of Columbus. And it's in New Albany.
Yeah. New Albany. Yeah, that's where. Limited, Les Wexner, and all those. Yeah. He lives up there in that area. Or, I think he's still alive. I don't know.
We're fine. Okay, so what took you all to Baltimore,
Ohio? Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a funny story that. So my dad he was born in Puerto Rico. So he was an American citizen by birth.
Okay.
But he moved to Venezuela when he was about 3 years old, something like that. So he grew up in Venezuela all his life, but he was born in Puerto Rico. So he had American citizenship, birthright American citizenship. So he could come to the United States anytime he wanted to. So, he lived in Venezuela, went to school, got married.
What did he do for a living?
He's an engineer.
Okay.
He was an engineer. So he went to college for mechanical engineering. He actually had a good job. I remember he said he had a really good job. I remember I was always excited when he would bring home the company Jeep, because we got to jump in the back. He'd drive me around the neighborhood, because the top would be off.
Yeah.
I'm sure I was probably standing up, holding onto the thing.
Yeah, no
because
seatbelts.
It was the late 70s. No one's wearing any kind of safety equipment. My mom always made us wear seatbelts. Actually, my mom was actually very. Maybe she got in an accident when she was young or something. So she was very much pro seatbelts. But maybe that's why the Jeep was so cool. So, but he worked for I think tangentially to one of the oil companies. We live in Maracaibo, which is right there where all the oil fields are.
Okay.
In the lake in Venezuela, where all the most of the oil fields are. So he worked at least tangentially for one of the oil companies and such. So, he always said they had a good job. At the time, Venezuela was a beacon of South American democracy. It was like the place to be and to go. People actually would immigrate there from Italy and stuff like that, for better opportunities and things of that nature. As far as I know, as far as I've been told,
I've heard some Germans came there in the 1944 5.
I think it's a bit further south than Brazil, but
sorry, I keep seeing TikToks of people in Brazil saying, I was like, look at this German town. I was like,
yeah. I don't think it.
Sorry, that was too easy.
So anyway, but they decided they just thought, why don't we, we're young. Yeah, we've got these 2 kids, but why don't we give it a try and move to the United States, see what it's like.
Did your mom work, or was she a homemaker?
At the time, we were young. I was 5 and my sister was 3. So I think she was mostly a homemaker.
Yeah.
I don't recall her working when we were there. Man, all these things I don't know. I probably need to ask. They're coming this weekend, so gives me an opportunity to find out all this information, which I guess I should have known for today.
It's okay. I have asked my parents for 40-something years, why is my name Jody? And one of them will always say, Dad will say, ask your mom. Now ask mom, she'll ask your dad. I was like, that's 40 years of that. Yeah. So I don't know what my name is. Why my name is what it is. You're good.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out one day. So they decided to try, let's move to the United States and just check it out. So it happened to be that my aunt and uncle were actually getting their master's degree at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio.
Okay.
So that's your first stop. You have family, that's where you go. Yeah. So it was great. Athens was awesome when I moved there because my aunt and uncle, they lived on a farm, basically. One of their professors rented out the farm. They owned 2 farmhouses next to each other. I guess they bought the other land. And so we lived on a farm basically for 8 months when we first moved there, which was fantastic because it was just acres and acres of land for us to run around, and me and my sister and my cousins. So that's how we ended up in Ohio. And then, at that point, my dad's just looking for jobs, and he, if you can imagine the late 70s, early 80s, coming in with an accent, a Spanish accent. It's hard for him to find work and find a job. He was, interviewing a lot, anywhere, everywhere, out into Pennsylvania, into Kentucky, Virginia, anywhere in Ohio. And finally in Baltimore, Ohio, there's a little company called Sakis Incorporated. I think they're actually closing down soon. But owned by George Sakis. And he was a Lithuanian immigrant with a thicker accent than my dad had. even after how many years he'd been in Baltimore, he still had the thickest accent of any man in the area. So he was not at all put off by my dad's accent or his immigration story, anything like that.
Yeah.
And hired him right off the bat, because my dad could do the computer stuff that all the engineers there couldn't do.
Yeah.
Because they were all old school guys, from the 50s and 60s and such, and my dad could do all that computer stuff. So, and that's how we ended up in Baltimore, Ohio.
What was it like? Baltimore, Ohio was really rural. So, what was it like? What was it? Was it just all white kids?
We were the minority population.
Okay.
We a few years later, Lawrence and Ralph, they moved into town. Their dad was black, and her mom was white. So they were a couple years younger than me. I think they may have been in my sister's grade, but beyond that, we were the only
crackers
kids.
As far as the eye can see.
Yeah. It's just it's what you expect from Midwest Ohio in the 80s, I guess. It was fun. It was really cool.
Okay.
It was a.
Were you always into art as a kid?
Yeah. I was always drawing and making things.
Okay.
One of the cool things about my dad's job, working with all the computer stuff, was he would get. You may or may not remember this. The old computer, the dot matrix printers.
Oh yeah.
Had the paper with the little things on the side, and little grooves on the side. They go. And they would just print off all this information. And after the information was printed, it had been used and looked at, it was going to be thrown out. So he would bring me the stacks of this paper in the boxes and just bring it home. And I would just tear off sheets and draw on the back of them, tear off sheets and draw on the back of them, just tear off sheets and draw on the back of them.
I grew up going to a daycare over here on Fairview that for whatever reason we had boxes of that stuff. Yeah. And it would have
we lived on Fairview Avenue in Baltimore, really? By the way. They just said that. It just
but it would have, something on one side, and we would just flip it over.
Flip it aside.
Yeah.
And I would just draw and draw and draw and draw and draw. And I remember, I just remember we'd have the TV on, back in the 80s,
Yeah.
One TV set, 3 channels, or whatever song we're watching. So I would just sit on the floor with my paper and draw, and my sister would play with her dolls, and we'd watch the TV shows and stuff. So
What got you? Were you into comics or cartoons, or what got you into that?
I don't know. I literally, I can't remember ever not drawing. So I just,
Okay.
that's, yeah, I was into cartoons. Yes, I was into comics. I got into comics eventually. All that typical, I don't know if it's typical or not, but all that art side of things, the drawing kid side of things.
Yeah.
I was always just really into that. I remember I was very, Tom and Jerry. I was very into Tom and Jerry growing up. I really liked Tom and Jerry. Scooby Doo, After School, all those things, and Batman. I liked Batman. I liked the Batman. I remember watching the Batman, the old '60s Batman show.
Adam West, yeah.
In Venezuela when I was a kid. I remember watching it there, and I still remember the Batmobile. My mom got me the plastic. When we moved to Ohio, we got the
Nice.
I got the Batmobile, and I loved that thing. I remember taking it to the pool and stuff. What
goes
underwater
in the show? Why can't it go underwater here?
It was just a piece of plastic. It was
Yeah.
fine. It was great. So I remember drawing Batman a lot. I was always trying to. How do I make him look like he's running? How do I actually get that to look right? I've always just, I wish I had a better answer for you on that one, like what got me into it. I've literally have always done it. And my aunts told me, that, yeah, you were just always making these little things. It was, when my one aunt told me, I don't know, maybe about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we were just talking, they had recently moved up here, up to the States, and they were living at my mom's place. And my aunt told me, we were just talking and, having a beer, in the backyard. And she said, yeah, you were always just making stuff. She's like, I remember I brought you Play-Doh when you were just 2, and you made a dinosaur, and it looked like a dinosaur. And we were all like, huh? What is going on? And you could always draw things. And I was like, huh. Like I said, I wish I
Did your folks encourage it?
Yeah, like I said, when my dad
Yeah.
would bring me the paper, so I could draw on it. They would buy me the pencils and obviously crayons and all that stuff. They never, until I got to college and I decided to change my major over. They weren't quite as supportive at that point.
Whoa. This is fun. This is fine.
Yeah, they were always supportive throughout my youth on it. There was a time when they weren't as supportive on it, but.
Do you remember the first piece or artist that kind of clicked something in your head?
Yeah, that'd probably be Jim Lee.
Okay.
Marvel. That's ultimately the my first kind of art education would have been comic books.
Yeah.
If I think back on it, first art education, in terms of how to draw the figure, how to draw action, how to draw people, obviously ridiculously exaggerated.
Yeah.
Huge-breasted women, huge-breasted men,
Yeah.
Super wide, shoulders and all that stuff. Yes, completely exaggerated, but at least when you look at it, you get a sense of how a body moves and the kind of action, kind of things that, I try to teach my students now. And sometimes I'm like, look, let's just look. So I pull up old Jim Lee images and comic images. Look how the movement is. And, so it was, that was probably the first artist that really kind of clicked in my head. Oh, wow, look at this. This is how things work. And I can see, the way he drew portraits of people and the characters.
Yeah.
It really gave me a sense of, how a head is built.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point then you have to kind of unlearn some of that to look like, because you look at me, I'm not, I'm not built like
Superman.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like not everyone's built to be. Not everyone's 6'3" and lithe and muscular, and so you have to unlearn some of that stuff. But that's where college comes in real life drawing classes and all that stuff. But
that's what's funny if you look back to the old Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko. It looks more like normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first one that I really got into was John Romita Sr.
Yeah.
Because my dad was in the service and they gave him tons of comic books. So I grew up reading his Stanley early
Yeah.
60s Spider-Man books.
Yeah.
Or I guess late 60s Spider-Man books. And so seeing like John Romita Sr.'s drawings were the first one that they kind of looked, shoot, I can't remember, Lichtenstein, the one who ripped off everybody.
Yeah. Roy Lichtenstein. I met him.
Yeah. Did you?
He's shorter than me.
Oh God, you haven't listened to Josh Shorey. You haven't heard me get angry about. There's certain artists that I get angry about.
Oh, come on, man. He's from Ohio. Well, he's not from Ohio. We went to Ohio State.
Him, Richard Prince is another one.
Richard Prince, yeah, he gets my nerves too.
Okay, thank God. Yeah, I kept saying, I want to punch that dude in the throat. And Josh was like, why are you so angry? I was like, because I just want to punch that dude in the throat. I don't like him. Anyway, I can't get down that road. But, like John Romita Jr. was like what perfect classic comic book art used to be.
Yeah.
Like it was perfected from the Ditko. Because you look at some of the Kirby stuff and it's like, what is up with that jawline?
Yeah.
Is that like the Frank Miller stuff then kind of morphed into the Kirby look to where it's like so blocky and square. And then, from there, it's crazy what comic books have gotten into now.
Yeah, they've actually, when I look at some of the comics now, I've lost touch, honestly. They're. I think you guess I kind of got to blame Jim Lee on that. Getting that exaggerated version of things, but then it got even further exaggerated beyond that, and then it's become this kind of they're so interesting to look at sometimes. I pick up an issue here and there on occasion, and just have a look and see what's happening.
There's a guy that came around in comic books like 10. God, I'm probably going to get this wrong. What's funny is this guy has gone on to become a huge Marvel writer. Jonathan Hickman. So he was like a graphic designer who then became a comic book artist. So a lot of his early stuff, the Nightly News and stuff, it's just very hardcore, like designed and technical, all this stuff. Yeah. And it's not like comic book art. Like it was just completely different. And 2008, okay.
Yeah.
But like there you can see the cover of issue number 1. How that's like done in Illustrator or Photoshop.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you can tell now a lot of it's done computerized, and
some of it good, some of it bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are the limits of it. I think.
Yeah.
I grew up with a pencil, so I kind of like the stuff that's drawn and inked and and colored.
I'm trying to think. So I've gotten back into comics a little bit, and like I am very kind of picky on what I get and stuff, but I just recently, I'm not even a huge Fantastic Four fan, but there's this artist that I like named Art Adams.
I'm not familiar with this work,
but like this is a Fantastic Four thing that he did. I was like, that is dope. That is amazing. Yeah. It's like that. It's not like a Jim Lee, like perfectly. Here's 6 characters perfectly standing going this way. It's just like boom coming at you. Like I really like that, and so I've picked those up. I was like, oh, these stories may suck, but I love the art.
The art was great, and that's half the thing right there in comic book. Is the drawing and the art.
Since your school was so small, did you all have an art program at your high school?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
This is still 80s and 90s, so we still had funding for that stuff. I don't know if that stuff's still there, honestly.
Oh, I got so lucky at Fulton because we were a vocational school, and there was like upholstery, woodworking, auto mechanics, but I had graphic arts where we actually learned printing. But then our art teacher, Mrs. Waller, her and her husband were art professors at UT in like the late 60s through the 70s and 80s. God, I hope I'm not aging her up too much. They were art professors at UT forever. And then she started teaching at UT, and she was teaching us screen printing intaglio.
Yeah.
Like, and then just like form drawing and all this crazy shit. Like,
yeah,
got very lucky.
Yeah, we had we had a pretty good setup. Some art throughout school. When I guess my sophomore year, they built a new high school, which is still a high school there. So we were the first group of students to get into it. And we had a really nice art room. Actually, we had built an art room with a dark room in it and everything.
Oh wow!
So we had pretty good facilities overall, especially for, like I said, a small rural school district. It worked out pretty well. And our art teacher, Mrs. Dennis, she's pretty great. She's pretty good. She really tried to teach us some things, and I took it seriously because I liked it. I wanted to learn more about it. And she would also give us free reign because we were the art kids. We were the good ones at art, and we just could do. Everyone else had to like ask for materials. Can I have a pencil, please? Can I have it? And we would just raid the cabinet and take whatever we wanted and make whatever we wanted with it. And she would just encourage us with that. And so that was really really great in terms of having access to those kind of things. Those facilities and those opportunities to make stuff and just to explore and play and so
you graduate high school and you go to college. Did you said you switch majors, or did you choose art to begin with?
I switched majors.
Okay, what was your original?
Engineering. As I said, my dad's a mechanical engineer. His older brother, my uncle, is a mechanical engineer. His younger sister, she's a agricultural engineer. She worked with dairy farms in France and dairy farms in Venezuela and stuff like that. The youngest brother, he was the black sheep. He was a marine biologist. So as you can see,
you were going to say like politician.
There's a lot of science and engineering involved in the family. Wow. My mom, when we moved to the United States, she went to school. She got a degree in computer science and business. And my uncle's wife's my aunt. She's a civil engineer. There's a lot of engineering in the family. Wow. So I was an engineering major for about 2 quarters. In both quarters I failed calculus. So I kind of figured maybe this engineering thing is actually not going to work out for me. And honestly, I really just want to do art. I pretty much, I knew basically the first day of drawing one that I wanted to do art at that point. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but.
Which college did you go to?
I went to Ohio State.
Oh, okay. You mispronounced it.
Yes, it's the Ohio State University. I try not to be too much of a dick about that.
Isn't that a Chris Berman thing? Like, that was not an old school thing. That was something Chris Berman
used that literally, we started seeing that, I think.
In the 90s.
I don't even know if it was in the 90s, honestly. I feel like it wasn't until like the early 2000s that I really started seeing it come up. When that started, and then all the players started saying it. I think, once players start saying it, then it becomes.
So I'm going to Columbus on Sunday. I've got tickets to a show. Check out this lineup. It's all Ohio people. It's the James Gang's Last Ride. Joe Walsh's band.
Right.
All Ohio people coming and supporting him. It's Dave Grohl, the Breeders.
Nice.
The Black Keys.
Nice.
And 9 Inch Nails.
Nice.
And it's this veterans benefit in whatever that arena is in Columbus. But my buddy works for the university and the hospital system. And I stopped through Columbus, had lunch with him this years ago. I was coming back from Cleveland. And Urban Meyer had just gotten hired as coach.
Yeah.
And I hated him from Florida.
Yeah.
So I didn't like him at Ohio. I still didn't like him at Ohio.
I never said a bad word about the man when he's at Florida. Looks around.
Yeah. Thank God Twitter wasn't around back then. But
there may be some things on my MySpace or something talking about him, but
on your live journal.
Yeah.
But I had dropped him off, and it was right across from the practice field. And I think I put up on Facebook, I was like, can you all start getting my bail money ready? I think I'm going to jump that fence and go punch Urban Meyer right in the face. And one of my friends, Mandy, her and her husband went to Michigan. So they are hardcore Michigan.
Yeah.
And she was like, my husband's a lawyer. You will never see a jail cell. I was like, oh, my God. And she was like, I'm not kidding. He will defend you if you go do that. And I was like, I think those football players may kill me. So, no.
Yeah, you're a big dude, but they're big dudes too, and they're young
faster.
and they can run around.
Yeah, they're faster. Bigger, faster, stronger.
Exactly.
You know, all those things. It's like, but, okay, so how was their art program?
I thought it was really good.
Okay.
Honestly.
Did they try to push you into like graphic design or anything, or?
No, they didn't try to push me into that
Okay.
at all. My mom did.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can tell her now, as a graphic designer, 30 years experience, there's not a lot of money in that.
Yeah,
either.
well, you know what? It wasn't even, I was just, I don't know. I guess I was, I was just an 18-year-old little shit. And I just, I had to think something to tell the world, I guess. I thought in my head. And I didn't want to, sacrifice my vision or whatever. I don't know, all the kind of stupid things you think in your head, which I still believe in to an extent. I would not be a good graphic designer. I mean, I could do it maybe. I did go back to Pellissippi at one point to when the teaching gig doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But
did you have Mr. Gilbert? David Gilbert?
Yes. Yeah, I had him for a couple classes.
One of the greatest human beings on the planet.
Yeah, he was real good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I guess at the time I just was, I wasn't interested in, I knew for a fact that as a designer, you would have to put yourself in the background and do whatever your client wants. And, and it just wasn't for me, in that sense. So
what was Columbus like around that time?
It was a big city. It's not as big as it is now. It's certainly no New York or Chicago. That's but if you've been to Columbus, you've been on the campus area. When you went there, it wasn't even when it was in the 90s. In the 90s, it was just it's pretty awesome because it was it was dirty and grungy, and
I grew up here, and it being a college town forever.
Yeah,
so I feel like we haven't. About 10 years ago, we finally made the switch to where people don't think of us as just a college town first. Whereas all growing up and all that, it was always like, oh no, Knoxville's a college. And it was downtown was grungy and grimy, and no one ever went there.
Oh, no, I remember when I first moved here, it was boarded up, and I remember that, and I was around 2004, so it was still, kind of, it's changed quite a bit in the time I've been here.
Yeah.
Columbus was great back then. It was just, growing up in a small town, my wife, who, she sometimes says, she kind of sometimes insinuates she grew up in a small town. And I guess, once again, comparing Knoxville to Nashville or to Atlanta, it is a smaller city, but it was still not a real proper small town.
That's what's weird. Whenever anybody tags us as a small town, I was like, I can't, because I've been to Madisonville. I know what an actual town is. And Madisonville technically is not that small of a town. Like, there are far smaller towns.
Sometimes, growing up, all you would, we would, when we were teenagers, we just hang out at people's houses, in their front yards, in their backyards, or in the field behind their house. Because, because there's nothing else to do. Oh, the gas station, we would just sit at the gas station and order Cokes, and
I'm trying to remember, was it Wartburg? Because I grew up playing sports, so we would go to all these counties and shit far away. And it was like, there was one, it's like, oh, we finally got a Hardee's. Like they had a McDonald's for years across from our high school, but they finally got a Hardee's and they were excited for that. I was like, that's a small town.
Yeah. No, we didn't have anything like that. We when I was in high school, we finally got they call it the Lunchbox. It was a fast food style restaurant, which local guy built himself because he couldn't get the rights to a McDonald's because it was too small for McDonald's. So yeah, I think it's still there. It might be a different name, but we would go in there and get a burger and but yeah, that was like junior year of high school or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even name brand.
Yeah.
We had to drive to there was the local IGA, which we could do some shopping in. But if you wanted to go to the Kroger, you had to go to Lancaster, and that was a 20-minute drive to get to Lancaster. Then you had to drive into Lancaster to get to the Kroger. They finally built a mall in Lancaster. That was a small town too, more like 50,000 people, 30,000 people maybe back then.
Yeah.
I think it's only got 60 maybe now. But they finally built a mall there probably when I was in junior high. So that was kind of so when we went shopping to the mall or whatever, we had to go into Columbus or into, down into Lancaster when they finally built that mall there. So yeah.
Did you all go into Columbus quite a bit, or
we did. A lot of people didn't where I grew up.
Yeah.
For them, it was a very, you have to remember, my parents were young, my mom was 18 when she had me. My dad was like 20, right? So they were young.
Wow. Yeah.
So, when they moved there, he would have been 25, so, so they were young, looking back on it now at my age, thinking to myself, oh my goodness, it just seems so crazy that they were doing that at that young of an age. Cause I see kids that age who come to me as freshmen and I'm like, you're just dumb. And then someone gave that.
I didn't go where I thought it was going to go. You're still a child. No, you're dumb. You're dumb.
But they were young and they also grew up in a big city, like 3 million people.
Oh shit.
In the middle of a big, the second biggest city in the country.
Okay.
So a cult, so it's still, it becomes like that second, it's always like, the LA to the New York of the capital, so to speak. Right. So there was always that, so they grew up in a big place. So my mom was very much used to seeing, and if we want, if you wanted to get anything that was, we would occasionally find, a Cuban store somewhere. We would be able to find products.
Okay.
So we would find places, because even back then, even in Columbus back then, there wasn't a lot of Latino people there. So.
Yeah, growing up here, no, it was wild. Like going to Fulton. Fulton was 2/3 black. And if I'm just, good Lord, this is hard to say with my accent and how I look. But it's like 2/3 black, a dozen maybe gay guys, which for back then in the 90s, that was something.
Yeah.
Probably 50 gay women. Like being a lesbian was there were a lot at Fulton.
Yeah.
All these are good things. Good Lord. Saying them with my accent. This is rough. But it was like, I don't remember that many. What is the proper term?
I said Latino.
Okay. Somebody fussed at me and said you need to say Latinx.
Yeah, that's the new academic term.
And then I interviewed somebody who is Latino and in the fiber arts community, and she was like, "That's bullshit. Don't use that term ever." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. I have a cousin. Being in the academic world, I sometimes when I write things, depending on if it's going to a certain audience, I will use that. But yeah, I say Latino. I just.
Well, it's the improper thing is I was like talking to somebody. There's a friend of mine that she was born in Mexico, But I also make fun of her and say, you're the whitest person I've ever known. You talk about Target deals and you go to Starbucks and you talk like you grew up in Southern California. And she's like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Starbucks. I was like, you're not from Mexico. I'm sorry. You've assimilated to my people, the white people. But I used the term, I'm like, Hispanic? Because I thought that was the proper term. She's like, that's racist as shit. And I was like,
I don't know if it's racist.
it's like, is it racist? I was like, Mexico? And she was like, that's worse. And I was like, but you're from Mexico, you asshole. Like, goddamn, what? What am I supposed to say?
I have a feeling she was making fun of you.
No, she actually wasn't. She was a young person. She is, let's see, she is 29 right now. I know that because when this happened, she was 23. And I said, oh, yeah, I've been doing graphic design 24 years. She's like, that's a year more than I've been alive. I was like, you're an asshole. That's where she was making fun of me. But she was being serious. And I was just like, fuck, I've dug a hole and I don't know. I'm just trying to say the right thing. God damn it. What's happening? What's happening? But yeah, I don't remember much of any, or no Asian community, no Middle Eastern community, nothing.
Yeah.
We had more like this weird religious sect. It wasn't Mennonites, but it was something like that where they couldn't watch TV. Yeah. All the girls wore the skirts all the way down, and the hair covered their hair, and the boys wore like dress pants with collared shirts tucked in. Yeah. Like we had more of that than we had any other race, other than black or white. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Like
no, yeah, yeah. I remember it was, we just didn't get a lot of, there wasn't a lot of community in that sense. I remember when I was in first grade, though, we did actually have a family from Spain move in.
Oh, wow.
Move into the town. And I remember the little boy, Walter, he got, of course, placed next to me. So I was the ESL program.
Oh, my God.
I guess, because I would translate for him a little bit until he got the gist of English. At that age, you pick it up pretty quick. But, yeah, we became friends for a long time, us and that family. They didn't live there that long. But they were actually from Spain. The father there was from Central Ohio, and he was stationed over there. And
okay.
He had met the mother there, and they got married, had kids, and they came back to Ohio. So that was the one other people who spoke Spanish, at least.
I don't know how to say this. This is a positively racist thing. It's like, y'all know how to cook? Spanish food's very good. It's like, do y'all know how to cook? Because can I come over? Can I be invited, please? That's where I'm awful. I'm like,
my wife now, she makes some of the best black beans that you're gonna get.
Really?
she learned how to make those. I taught her how to make them, and then she makes them better than me.
I made the food of my people today. I made Oreo lasagna.
Oreo lasagna. I think I saw that on your Instagram. I didn't read what it was.
I'm gonna start calling it that. The food of my people. Oreo lasagna. Husky people.
I'm always down for that.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to the Ohio State University.
The Ohio State, yeah.
Taking art. So what were your thoughts on okay, I'm going to take art? Like, did you immediately say, okay, I also need to get my master's after this? Or?
Well, the thing was this, right? Like I said, the first day of drawing one, there was a big screw up when I signed up for classes, and I ended up having to. At the time, I thought I was going to go to the satellite campus of Ohio State in Newark, Ohio, with my friends. That's where they were going.
What's up with all the towns in Ohio called somewhere bigger elsewhere? Yeah. Baltimore, Newark.
Yeah.
What is happening?
And then there's a screw up, and with my scholarship that I had, I had actually to be at the main campus, so they were like, "No, you're going to go over there." So I had like a day before classes start, I had to drive over to Columbus and get registered, and so like that first quarter, my classes were literally like 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 5 p.m. and it was like 3 hours between each class. And it was like, it was an all day thing for me up there.
So my first year of going to Pellissippi, they had just moved the graphic arts program from Liberty Street, which I lived out next to Easttown Mall, Liberty Street, to the Pellissippi campus. Where I was like, son of a bitch. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing to me, man?
So I had a 5 o'clock drawing class, 5:30, whatever it was, after being all day there, and then I was like, I am interested in drawing, and I'm not sure how good everyone else is. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And this guy walks in, he seemed older. He was a bit older. He was a bit older than a regular grad student. He was a grad student. I didn't realize the difference at the time, between a teaching assistant and, a regular professor. Right. I had no idea what that was, anything of that. But he walks in. He was older than a regular grad student, but he was still obviously younger than what my other professors had been so far during the day. And he had long blue hair. It's 1992, right? Long blue hair, a black leather jacket, ripped jeans. And I was like, wow, I thought you'd be a student, not a teacher.
Yeah.
And his name is John Thrasher. And he
Of course it was.
Right. John Thrasher is his name, right? And
I feel like you got to look like that if your name is John.
And he was just he was from Kentucky, so he had an accent not so dissimilar from yours.
Yeah.
And he was just like the coolest dude I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And he's teaching art. And I was like, I was just, I don't know. I always kind of think of myself as a quiet guy. I don't know if I talk a lot now, I think. As I've gotten older, I've gotten out of my shell a bit, but at the time I was still very introverted and quiet, or, I can be not standoffish, but I sometimes I get anxiety and I don't want to talk, but so it took me a little while but I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's really awesome. I have some facility with drawing, so he's always very encouraging, very, very positive with me. Probably about week 2, I asked him, so you're a grad student in art, I had no idea that this is a thing, right?
Yeah.
I thought you go to school to be an engineer or a doctor. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two things you get.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. I was like, how, so what do you do with that? What do you do with a graduate degree? He's like, well, then you become a professor. And then it's like, and then you do this, you teach art.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach art. I'm going to be, I want to be an artist. And I'm also on my teaching side and my art side. And so, wow, what do you do to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you got to get a master's in fine arts, which is what I'm doing here. And usually you can get a bachelor's in fine arts. That's the easiest way, the easiest transition, but you can also do it in different ways if you want, a BA in art or whatever, or just, it's like, there's a BFA in art here. So that's a thing that's here. Is like, yeah, that is here. So I started looking at the college catalog, which was still on paper back then, and
so you crack that thing out. You're like, I don't know where that thing went. It's somewhere.
Yeah. And I started learning. I was like, wow, this is an actual thing. I think at that point I kind of knew that what I was gonna do at that point.
Yeah.
But I was still technically a engineering major. Like I said, failed miserably out of calculus twice.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get my head around it. I thought I knew what was going on. In class, I understood everything they said. I read the book. I understood that. I did the homework. The homework was always right. I'd get 100 on my homeworks. Tests would come up. I'd be like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly as I was doing in the homework. The number we put down, it would be completely wrong. It's like, what is going on? And, my dad's trying to help me because he's an engineer. He does calculus. He knows all this stuff. And he's showing me, and I'm like, okay, but I get that. But then I would do it right every time. And then the same procedures in the test always came out wrong. I don't know what happened, but I failed out of calculus twice. And I knew that engineering was not the thing for me at that point. So that's when I decided, I'm switching over. I switched over to art, and I just switched my major.
Did they feel better when you said, well, my goal is to be a professor?
Not one bit.
Oh, really?
Not one bit.
Okay.
I remember, I still lived at home, and I would come home from school sometimes, and my mom would, she would leave me these articles like from the New York Times or whatever, like, like how terrible it is in the arts to make a living, and the money that how little money you make. I was at that point, I was like, I don't care, man. I'm going to be an artist, and I'm going to live in a crappy place, and I'm going to starve and suffer for my art, and I don't care anymore. This is what I'm going to do. And, they had no leverage over me because I had a full ride scholarship, so it's not like they could say, well, I'm not going to pay for it, because I was like, well, whatever, you're not paying for it anyway. It's like, the worst they could do is kick me out, but then, hey, I just go get an apartment, and I knew people.
Crappy
at that point.
apartment,
yeah,
you'll starve.
I did that. I would do the thing I said. So yeah, they were. It was coming from a good place, I guess, from a protective place. And I think, being from Venezuela, there are no kind of art jobs the way there are here, at least from what they tell me. Like I said, I'm making a lot of pronouncements about a place that I lived at
for 5 years.
For 5 years as a kid, right?
Yeah.
But I think that they were just, those kind of jobs weren't something that people in the middle class or the lower class could do, because it's something that you need family support. So the idle rich can do it, and send their kids to Paris art schools or whatever. But so I guess I understand where they're coming from. But as I said, I think obviously in this country there's more opportunities for making a living, a creative living, and I think it's something they didn't realize at the time. So
if it helps, I bet if you asked my mom, she would not know how to describe. I'm the only artist in my family. The only one.
Yeah.
And if you asked her, she's like, he's a graphic designer. And you're like, what is a graphic designer? She'd probably be like, I don't know. Whereas my dad would be like, where he'd be like, well, he designs like food menus and stuff like that. It's like, I haven't designed a food menu in 5 years. So you had the grad school student.
Yeah.
Teaching you how to.
Kind of just telling me the ropes on it. And I said, my parents were not really that. They weren't enthused, let's say. I won't say they weren't supportive, because, they never flat out, they never gave me ultimatums, threatened me with any kind of, but they were just trying to push me into, my mom was like, well, what about design? She looked into something. She said, what about architecture? And I kind of looked into architecture. I thought about it, but I was like, but everyone I talked to in architecture was like telling me about, that first quarter in architecture, they're going to weed you out. It's going to be, like 24 hours every day, overnight, 3 times a week.
Yeah, that crazy shit.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you know what? I really want to make paintings. I want to paint. I don't want to design houses. I'm not interested.
That makes me think of something. So when you were in high school, and then did you get to try a bunch of different media like charcoal and painting?
Yeah, we did. Did a lot of, especially drawing media. We did do. We had acrylics and stuff.
Yeah.
Our teacher, she wasn't that great at that part of it. She was more of a ceramicist and photographer, but she had pretty good skills in drawing. So she wouldn't. I don't think she taught us so much about that aspect of things as much as I got more of that when I got to college.
Okay.
But yeah, I had played around with paints a little bit. I wouldn't say that I was that good with them at the time.
Okay. And you got to college, and I assume in college it was you trying every different kind of media you can.
Yeah. At that point, I did a BFA program, so at that point, you have to do, sections in sculpture and in printmaking and in painting and in drawing. You find your track, but you also have so even if you're a ceramicist, you still have to do at least painting one, at least a certain number of printmaking. A certain number of 2D stuff and different kind of various kind of media. So I got a chance to play, to do some things in lithography and in screen printing, and I did classes in ceramics, which I was terrible at. Sculpture I did a lot better in.
We had a class at Pellissippi that was called, that's where I graduated from, intermediate color and design. But it wasn't a graphic design class. It was an actual art class.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of like, all we did was it was kind of like drawing 2, because we were in drawing 1 and I did like charcoal, and we did a lot of charcoal in drawing 1. But then we started doing other, like a little bit of painting and stuff. But intermediate color design was like painting. You were essentially on your own to do whatever color pencils. Like, here's the project. Now you execute it how. So I still don't know how that thing got its title.
Yeah.
Like intermediate color design. It seems like a weird title.
Yeah, we did design classes like that too. Like design 1, design 2. You know, we had to do a color theory class, which was that was a tough one. But yeah, so I did get to play around with all that stuff. But ultimately, I was very much into painting and drawing. That was pretty much where I was looking at things.
Maybe I had this thought the other day that I still don't understand this, even though God knows how many people I know that have one. I don't understand a master's program. Like, it doesn't click in my head. Because from what everybody has explained to me, it's essentially like, I'm going to do a very broad definition. You have 2 years to do whatever you want to do, but you have to present something at the end. Am I way off?
You are not way off. No,
that's so weird to me.
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's so weird.
No. Yeah. I think that those master's program. I don't know. I think they could be built a little bit better. They're technically. Here's the thing, right? The Master's in Fine Arts is the terminal degree for the arts. So that's there is no doctorate in art.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think some places are starting to bring some out and stuff, but the industry standard, so to speak, is the Master's in Fine Arts. That's why I can teach at a university, because I've got the terminal degree. There's no more degree.
For some reason, somebody put it in my head that you had to have a PhD to teach.
To teach at university levels, you have to have a terminal degree, which is in the majority
in like English.
In the majority of fields, yes, the PhD is the terminal degree. In education, it's the educational doctorate. It's all these kind of different. But in the arts, it's the Master's in Fine Arts, because it's a professional degree, which prepares you to go out into to be an artist, so to speak. Now, one of the things I don't think they teach you well enough in those degrees is the nitty gritty of being the artist out there.
Right.
They very much concentrate on getting you very adept at thinking about art, talking about art, making art that conveys the message you're looking for as well as possible. Doing reading about theory and things of that nature. That's all really good stuff. But I think they could do better about the nitty gritty part of things.
Oh, my biggest thing, even when I was in school, is I think graphic designers and especially artists, you should have to take at least one business class.
Yeah. I feel like that should be part of it.
And like right now, I would add like marketing and promotion.
No, yeah, I agree with you now. Now that I'm teaching. One of the things, in the curriculum for many liberal arts degrees, there's a lot of elective space.
Okay.
There's a lot of elective space in at the bachelor's level. There's like 30 hours of elective space or something like that. So I'm always, when they start off, what do you want to do? I want to be an artist. Okay, what do you want to? Where are you going to be in 5 years, in 10 years?
Yeah.
What are you going to be doing as an artist? Do you want to teach? Okay, then what do you want to teach? You want to teach this level or that level? Because if you want to teach, elementary through high school, we actually have an education program here. Why don't you do that then?
Yeah.
That'll take up all your elective time. Now you have no elective left anymore. But that's fine. I had a student a few years ago. She wanted to concentrate on narrative and comic type of art. Okay, great. That's great. Why don't I'm going to teach you all the drawing parts of things, storytelling parts of things. Visual storytelling parts of things, visual how do things work, but I can't help you with writing or script writing.
Yeah.
But you know what we have? We have a minor in writing here. We have a minor in creative writing here. We, go take these English classes. Go take this. We have a screenwriting class. Go take the screenwriting class. A playwriting class. Take the playwriting class. 'Cause that's going to teach you how to tell a story.
Yeah.
And if you want to do comics and tell a story, learn how to tell a story. Take that knowledge and combine it into comics. Into what you want to do. Figure that out. I had a student, now she's starting a business. I had asked her if she wanted to do she said she might want to do that one day. I said, well, why don't you do a minor in business? Like you said, do a minor in business and promote, all that stuff. She had a nod. She didn't do it. Now she's actually starting a business. I told her,
here it goes.
You should have done it when I told you. But you can only tell them, you can only advise them what to do. You can't force them to do anything.
I think as a teacher, you'll like this because Mr. Gilbert, he was my advisor. And I went to Mississippi and I was in like the wrong major for the first semester. And so I was like one semester behind. So I ended up having to go for 3 years instead of just 2 years, which it was actually screwed up. In order to go 2 years, you essentially had to take like Design 3 before you took Design 2 during the summertime. That was the only way you could make it work. But the electives, so I took Advanced Sociology, a class called Sociological Problems and Change, Psychology, and then we had to take either a math or a English elective, and I took Advanced Probability and Statistics. And Mr. Gilbert said, you're the first student in this program I've ever had that chose math over English. I was like, because I can explain math. I can't explain English. Like, I write how I write. I'm never going to get any better than that, man. And so I took that class, and I said, I feel like as a graphic designer, I have to prove why I'm doing the right thing. So sociology, psychology are good classes. I was like, and the statistics, well, you can test this stuff. What do you think of this ad? Do you like it? All that. I was I'm figuring out how to prove that. And he was like, all right, I still don't get, he was still like dismissive, but now it's 20 years later. I'm like, that's all this shit is. It's psychology, sociology, and proving data. Like,
is that what most of the world is, honestly, at this point?
That's my day job now. Just like, I got our company from like page 3 on Google to page 1 on Google within 6 months.
There you go.
And the owner of the company is like, holy shit. Like, I was like, yeah, it's all just data and statistics.
Just data and numbers,
yeah. So I thought as a teacher, you were like, he still gave me, he also, the greatest compliment I ever got was, because I had taken print shop for 4 years at Fulton to where I was teaching it my last year to all the freshmen, because we had pre-voc where you took 2 weeks in every vocational program, drafting, auto mechanics, all of it. So I was teaching that class my last entire year, and I told Mr. Gilbert when I was going to leave, he was like, okay, do you know what you want to do? And I was like, I kind of want to do my own thing. I've been doing it for so long. I'd freelanced all through college, and I was like, I have all this knowledge of like printing and stuff. He was like, I would never advise anybody work for themselves except for you, because you've been doing it so damn long at this point.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I had 7 years experience in doing this. I printed, and I did it for like a year, and I was like, I got tired of being a salesperson and chasing people down for money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm out. I want to create. I don't want to do that shit, man. Yeah. But yeah, it's the electives were funny. I don't know how I got lucky and just thinking about that. But
no, yeah. Well, you had the right head on your shoulders, I guess.
I had parents that were a truck driver and worked for the phone company. So it was like, you're going to figure out a way to make money.
Yeah,
We don't not make money in this house.
Yeah.
The minute that you get that little piece of paper, you're going to start getting charged for everything. You're done. Yeah. Okay. So teaching, you got your master's.
Yes.
Was it pretty easy to find a gig after you got your master's?
It was it's very difficult.
Okay.
If you look at any kind of any program any arts program out there, you're going to have like a UT, for example, we would have a couple of ceramicists, 2 or 3 sculpture people, 4 or 5, printmakers, and 8 to 20 painters. So there's always a bigger contingent of painters and drawers. So every year, UT's graduate. Just thinking about UT, every year UT's graduating, between 5 to 15 painters every year. That one job comes up. All those 15 painters from UT are applying there, but so all the kids from Georgia, all the kids from Ohio State, all the kids, they're all applying for that job.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. It's really, really hard. And that was the hardest part. It was I felt, I remember when I got into grad school, I was like, yes, I may not ever, I don't know how to work this. I'm not to work an office job ever again. This is me great. I can, dreams, the dreams, the dreams that you have, right? Going in, you gotta be positive, I guess, going into it. So, I graduated and, I got some adjunct work. I did a lot of adjunct work, but, pretty quickly I was back in an office job in a call center, you have to pay the bills or help pay the bills as much as you can. I graduated in 2007 and I finally got this full-time gig, 15. So it took me about 8 years to get it. Most of that time I was working adjunct while also working,
whatever,
primarily call center work. I'm actually good at call center work. I got into it working at a bank when I was in Ohio, and a friend of mine had the job and he said, "Hey, you should apply here. You need a job." I was like, "Yeah, you need a job." And I got it. I was pretty good at it, pays the bills.
Yeah.
It's a job that I can forget about when I leave, when I walk out, so I don't care. So I did that, for about 8 years, working adjunct primarily at Roane State is where I was working a lot. Tried to get Pellissippi, but I never got into Pellissippi somehow. Then I had a pretty cushy gig at Roane State, so I was able to just do that.
Well, I think it feels like Roane State and LMU were expanding a lot more than Pellissippi was.
Yeah, I think especially back then, because at that point, Roane State was actually, I taught at the main campus. I taught at the Crossville campus. That was a terrible. That was like right out of college, right as right as the in 08 was the what was it? Whatever meltdown, the housing bubble meltdown.
Yeah.
And that's when gas went up really high. And I had to drive all the way to Crossville from Fountain City and all the way back twice a week. And, I don't think I made any money that semester. But
you could get, which one is the further one away? Crossville or Cookville?
Cookville is further away.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Cookville is where Ralph's Donuts is. So
I
was like, well, at least you get Ralph's Donuts. That's Cookville. That's where Tennessee Tech is.
Yeah, it's where Tennessee Tech's at. No, I wasn't able to do that. I did that. I did the part-time teaching for a long time. It was a bit harder for me. Because I came to Tennessee. It was a 3-year program. Most of them are 2-year, but there are some 3-year programs out there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So did you went to UT for your master's?
Yes, I came to UT. Okay. That's how I got to Knoxville.
Okay.
I went to UT for my master's degree.
Okay.
I thought Knoxville was going to be a 3-year gig. Go back to, I was living in Chicago when I moved down here. Either go back to Chicago, or if I want to try something new, either New York or maybe Atlanta,
Yeah.
A big city, go someplace big, but as the story goes, met a Tennessee girl, met a Knoxville girl, and here I am all these years later.
Yeah, but it
worked out.
It's great.
It's great. But the thing, the thing was that, we were together. We'd been together for a while. We were looking to stay together. So that means that she has a job here and a house here. I don't have a lot of people that I graduated with or graduated around me at the time, they could apply for a job in, in Connecticut, Texas, California, anywhere, everywhere, because they could just up and leave. I couldn't just up and leave. So
Yeah.
I was very limited. So it was very difficult in terms of finding employment in that sense. I wasn't able to build up a resume of teaching all kinds of different classes in all kinds of different colleges and doing a visiting position here or a visiting position there. So it was building up that resume to stay in a place made it difficult for me. But it worked. It worked out in the end. So I guess we can get into that if you'd like.
So LMU, I spent a week on the main campus my senior year of high school. But a friend of mine who is 1 year older than me went to college up there for 1 year. He didn't make it past 1 year. But for my spring break, my senior year, I actually went up to the LMU because their spring break was different than ours. So I just stayed in his dorm room. We ordered Domino's pizza every night.
Right.
And we ate in the cafeteria, and he was the manager of the basketball team. So during the day, we would just play the basketball team, and we'd find two players, and we'd play 2-on-2 versus them.
Yeah.
And never left campus.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing else to do.
Not a lot out there
in
now.
Harrogate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was wild when they started.
Now, was that before the bridge, the tunnel, I guess?
Yes.
This
was
before the
1996.
Yeah, I don't know when that tunnel was built, to be honest with you. I'm not sure when. But
early aughts. Early
Okay.
aughts. Because I had family from Kentucky that built the Kentucky side of that tunnel.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people that's the only work they could get, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, they may have been running from the law or something. Okay. But yeah, LMU, that's why I say I remember LMU and Roan State expanding a lot more.
Yeah.
In that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working, you're doing some adjunct at Roan State, and then the LMU position comes open.
Yes.
And at that point, where was it just the campus up there, or was there more down here?
It was primarily the campus up there at that
Okay.
point. They had just started maybe building the fitting out the law school, I think.
Yeah.
It may have just been starting to be like gutting the building and making
Yeah.
it. Yeah. That was 2015 when I got that job.
Oh man!
So
I've known you before you had the LMU job and didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, all that time I was just like working like at AAA for a while. That was a great job. They were real flexible because, that was right around the time we had River.
Yeah.
My son, for the people who don't know, for the listener, that's when we had our son. And, so that was the time, cause, I was working kind of nights for them. Cause, I would watch him during the day. That was when I wasn't teaching. That year or two, I was not teaching at that point. Because once again, when we had a kid, we had to figure out, after we had him, my wife was able to, between when he was born and the time she had built up, she spent the first 6 months with him. That she took it that whole first semester of school, and then that's when I started teaching. I started working at AAA right after that. That was my last semester of teaching for a little while, because I would have to watch him during the day, and then basically we'd hand him off. She'd come home, here's the baby, I'll see you later, and then I would go work for 6 hours or whatever it was on my my part-time job.
Yeah. I've got a friend that she has told me before. She's got 2 kids, and she was like, the cost of childcare is so much that I only get paid this little bit more doing my job. So at any point they piss me off to a certain point, I'll just leave.
Yeah.
And watch the kid, because childcare is so
No, it's ridiculously expensive. So we weren't able to afford that, because I was working basically mostly part-time. So it'd be, and it's also much more expensive when they're little like that, when they're tiny and they have diapers and all that stuff. But, we were lucky. We had that flexibility because, she was making enough to really keep us afloat, and with my part-time money, I was able to contribute what little I could. But I was contributed also, with being the child care during the day. So that was, worked out really well for us as a family, I think. Then when AAA moved their operations to Nashville, the call center operations anyway. That's I got laid off, and then then I had 6 more months with my son because I took advantage of all the time I'd paid into the workers, into the unemployment system. I was not taking advantage of this. I've got a 3-year-old or whatever he was at that time. I'm going to take every minute of this time. I applied and I did my whole thing with the unemployment office, and I was able to just. That was a pretty great time just hanging out with him. But during this time as well, while he was that age, we I went to Pellissippi for a little while at that point. I think it was around probably a little bit before he was born or right after he was born. I'd been having trouble finding a job, a full-time job. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I can, maybe I should try this design thing or figure out what it is exactly. I looked into it a little bit. I asked around a few people. I may have asked you about
maybe so.
Design job. What to do about working and looking at a design degree or job.
Yeah. And
several people, I'm not sure if you were one of them or not, told me, I said, should I go to UT or because that's what you think about.
Yeah.
I also know I think some of the community colleges have, and everyone to a T said, no, you go to Pellissippi.
Yeah.
What you need, what any designer needs is the hands-on knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get at Pellissippi. Go to Pellissippi. They were like, they literally told me, if I've got two people coming in the job applications, one says Pellissippi, one says UT, Pellissippi guy gets that job.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yeah, there's an art director at a firm here in town that he and I talked about this a while back, and he was like, the more years go past, the more that UT stack automatically ends in the garbage, and the Pellissippi stack automatically ends go to the next level.
Yeah.
And they remove now, because UT forever was the first 2 years you'd never touch a computer. Never.
Yeah.
Even up to last year. Or what now? Now they've removed you don't have to take any art classes if you're a graphic designer. And I was like, are you trying to kill this program? Because you need to learn art and color and all of that, and you need to learn a compuper.
Yeah, well, like I said, they told me, like, listen, any of that stuff that they're going to try to teach you,
probably me.
you have that already because you have a master's in art. You don't need to worry about color theory and all that.
Yeah.
What you need to do is how to figure out how to make this stupid computer do things.
Yeah.
I learned quite a bit, I thought, Yeah. Actually, no. So I did that right before he was born.
Okay.
Probably about 09 or so. I started doing that. I think maybe it was because we got pregnant. I thought about doing that because
that may have been right around the time they built that new building. I'm trying to remember when they built the new building, the big one.
Yeah. I think it was pretty soon after that because it was still kind of new and they were still very happy with it.
Yeah,
and
that's Mr. Gilbert. So when I was going there, there was one classroom in one building, and there were 2 computer labs in the library that were split by a divider. And one room had like 12 computers, and one room had like 20 computers, and that was it.
Yeah.
3 rooms.
Yep.
Well, 2.5 rooms, essentially. Like, that was it. Like, and everything else was
classroom space, I guess.
Was in one of those 2 spaces, and that was it. And then any other class you took was not a graphic design class. It was wild.
Yeah. No. So I did that for a little bit, and we're getting to LMU, right? So we're trying to get to we're going to train.
Yeah, we're
getting there. Yeah. So I did that for a little bit, and then he was born. And then
the AAA job.
What happened was that I had to start watching him a little bit. So then that's why I didn't finish. I actually didn't finish my degree at Pellissippi. I think I'm a semester short of my associates.
That's hilarious.
So I never actually finished that part of it. But because once again my son was born, so that didn't work out, and then I went back to doing some adjunct work. Again, trying to find work, and we got to the point where it was just like it just. It wasn't like I was getting pressure or anything like that. So, but I felt like I wasn't pulling my weight in the relationship and in the family. Right. My wife was making a good living as a teacher, and I was bringing home some money. And you're watching the kid. You're a partnership, but I felt like man, you're trucking close to 40 here, and. What are you contributing here? You're getting really close to 40, and you're not actually doing, where you think of yourself to be, in terms of pulling your own weight, so to speak. So I decided, okay, well, we give it a shot.
Yeah.
We give it another shot with this graphic design thing. I can maybe do that, finish that off, but that seems like a lot of work, and you're still taking a risk.
Yeah. It's not guaranteed jobs.
It's not a guaranteed jobs. And is it freelance at that point to start off with? Or is it, what are you going to be doing for real? I was like, you know what? You have a master's degree. It's an art. It's not anything, but you're educated. Go get any job at any company and work yourself up. Become a manager, 40 hours a week. Do the corporate thing. So I was going to do the corporate thing. Applied, got a job at a company here in Knoxville, and I was starting off on that. I think I'd just gotten hired, getting close to getting hired, and I went down to the Emporium building on a first Friday. We went down to Casa Ola, the Hispanic organization in the Emporium.
Yeah.
They're having an art show. I went to check it out, talk to some people, and talking to this lady. She's asking me, oh, you're an artist. We'd like to, maybe you want to show your work here one day. Oh, sure. Give me information. I'd love to do that. I was still making work, I was still doing my art. I had studio and all that stuff. And she's like, so what do you do? It's like, well, I have taught for a while, but I'm looking for a job. And she's like, oh, there's a guy here. He's looking for a painter. He's looking for an artist. And he introduced me to this guy, this huge dude, not quite as big as you, but he's real close. Mexican guy, Angel Luna is his name. He's a real great guy. He comes up and starts talking to me, and oh, you're looking for a job? He's like, yeah, you know what? I might be looking for an adjunct the upcoming semester. If you're interested. It's, oh man, okay, cool. He gave me his card. He got my information. And I was like, I don't want to do the adjunct thing again, because it's just not what I was. Yeah. What's that going to get me? I hadn't heard from him a little bit. I got the job at the place, and it was a train. It was a 2 or 3 month training course in this job, to learn the whole process of all this stuff. It's, it was a cell phone job, cell phones and the computer networks and all that stuff. And then he calls me, and he's like, listen, I'm going to need somebody in the spring. Can you come and interview for this job? I was like, let me get back to you. I talked to my wife. I was like, So it's like the only thing is it's a 4-year university instead of a community college, and that might look better on resumes, if you've got work at a 4-year university. And she was like, well, I don't know. She's like, you know what? This could be your last shot. Why don't you just take it? God bless her. She's very supportive. She puts up with me, so obviously she's
the Knoxville girls, man.
Yeah, she can be very understanding sometimes, and she puts me in my place when I need to be put in my place too. So
I've never seen that. I've never seen that happen. Not at all. No, I say nothing.
So
yeah.
So I said, okay, well, fine. So I went down and I had to do this whole thing, man. It was like crazy because usually for the adjunct jobs, they just call you over the phone and say, "Okay, come on, come and work."
Yeah.
I already met the guy. I thought it'd be, but he was like, "No, you got to come down and meet the dean, and we're gonna have to take you, and you got to take an interview with the VPAA." I was like, "For an adjunct job?" I was like, "This is crazy. What is the VP need to meet with me for an adjunct job?" But that's why they do it there. So I did the whole thing. I had to like take a day off of. I had to call in, not call in sick, but I had to lie and say my son was sick. I had to go pick him up.
Love it.
And you're in a training class, so you can't do that, or you should get dinged. And I was like, I got to do it. I was like, well, it's gonna, what? I know. I have to do repercussions or whatever. So I did it, and they offered me the job, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it. I was like, I just gotta. It wasn't until like January, but I was like, the training class goes through like half of December, and I was just gonna ride it out, keep getting paid, doing the job. And at that point, it got much easier. A training class, I just didn't worry about anything anymore. It was just
I don't have anything.
I don't have any skin in this game.
Yeah,
I know I'm going to maybe do two weeks of actual real work on the actual sales floor at this point because I know I'm out. So at that point, I knew I was out. But I got, they were going to hire me. They gave me my contract for an adjunct pay and stuff. And it was still in December. I was about to, I at this point I had quit the job.
Yeah.
Actually had another part-time job at the time too, which was really great, but quit that job too.
Yeah.
I quit 2 jobs in one afternoon. It felt amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to, take this job and shove it. And then I get a call. And they're like, so we've run into a problem. The professor that that works here, who does the painting classes and stuff and the other drawing classes, she has left. She's gone off to a different school. Hope this is okay. We want to offer you the full-time position now. I was like,
let me think. Yes.
Yes, please. So I had to go back in and re-interview. I don't know why I had to interview again. It was at that point it was a moot point. It was just like, oh, you have to come in. We have to do it. And shook some hands, and just like that, what was looked to be an adjunct position became a full-time position. It only worked out because this Venezuelan kid walked in and met a Mexican guy in an art show, and worked out fantastic.
The whole sliding doors thing.
If I had, exactly. What if I had not gone to that first Friday? If I had not gone to that first Friday, what would have happened? Where would I be today?
I have dozens of those. One of the weirdest ones. When I graduated high school, I had all this experience in printing. So there used to be a quick print place on Gay Street near the Bijou. Went in there, went through like 3 rounds of interviews, and they're like, okay, we're going to eventually offer you a graphic design position, but you have to run a press for the first 6 months. Because we have the one here who's the designer is joined the Navy, but it's not for 6 months. And the guy who runs the press is older. You'll have to run the press. It's like, it's totally fun. And it's like, and I can go to school. You can totally go to school. Like, cool. Did that. They went to offer me the job, and the old man said, I don't want to retire. So they're like, tough luck. You're on your own. I was like, can I come back in 6 months? They're like, maybe. Fuck, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Mr. Miracle, who is the graphic arts teacher at Fulton, hooked me up with...
Is his real name Mr. Miracle?
Conley Miracle.
That's a great name.
It's the greatest name.
Yeah.
He hooked me up with the guy who ran the print shop at Goodies. You remember Goodies?
Yeah.
And they were like, you're going to come in here and you'll be the post-press department. You're going to run the cutter. You're going to manage all of that. I was 17. Like, that's the funniest part of all this. Of both of these, I was 17.
Yeah.
And he said yes. His boss said yes. His boss's boss said yes. And then it went to like a regional vice president. And that guy was like, wait, excuse me. He's got to either do this or go to school. He can't do both. And they're like, okay, well, you can't work here because you can't do both. I was like, and even the shop foreman guy was like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's like 2 days a week where you're going to come in at noon instead of 8. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, I would still be working full time. I would just be working like flex hours. And then I applied for a job at this place called Macabre International, something like that, a manufacturing parts company in Blount County. I didn't know where it was. This was pre-GPS, so my dad drove me to the interview.
Right.
So I'm 17. My dad drives me in the interview. I'm also 6'6" and weigh 330 pounds. So that factors a little bit. Show up with my portfolio. They show me, like, you'll be building this catalog and you'll be marketing it and you'll be doing press conferences. So you'll have to fly to Europe and do press conferences for these parts. And I was just like, I'm 17. I can't rent a hotel room. What are you?
Yeah.
And they were like, the job is yours if you want it. And I was like, what is happening?
Wow.
And I walked back out to the car, and Dad was like, all right, how'd it go? And I was like, well, they offered me a job. And I told him, he was like, what the fuck? Like, he was just like, what is happening? And
Here's Jody in Munich.
so
17 years
so my
old.
sliding doors is, what if I had taken that job?
Yeah.
Like, how weird would my life be right now?
Yeah.
A 17-year-old kid. How the hell would I rent a hotel room? Like, you can't rent a hotel room at 17.
Right. Right.
But I think about, so I've had dozens of sliding doors, but those are 3 big ones to where I was like, man, if I had worked any 3 of those jobs, I may have not gone to school. What would I be doing right now? I probably would not be sitting right here right now.
Yeah.
If it was, how many of my friends would I've never met because of that?
It's a crazy thing, right?
Weird.
I mean, it is a crazy thing, this idea of how we end up places,
And it's like, if you hadn't found that AAA job to get you over the hump, you may have taken a corporate job earlier.
Right.
And, wouldn't have ended up.
Would have ended up there,
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's, it really worked out because, that's the one thing that, I do love is the teaching part.
Yeah.
I really do love that part of the job. Interacting with the students, interacting with the young artists, and just getting to know them, getting to know their work, pushing them, joking around with them. I enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it.
I think you and I have talked about this before. I told you, I was like, eventually I'd love to be able to teach graphic design, but I would want to teach it at a collegiate level. Oh yeah. Oh shit. That was other jobs I got offered. I got offered 6 different jobs teaching graphic arts programs in high schools around town from age 17 to 25 when I finally had to say, I'm not going to do this. Please stop calling me. Mr. Miracle called me. He's like, all right, Oak Ridge, that teacher's leaving at 17.
Yeah.
Do you want to go out there? I was like, some of those kids are older than me. What the hell are you talking about? Like Oak Ridge, Carnes, Farragut, Bearden, and then Fulton.
Yeah.
Fulton twice.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do this when I'm older. I don't want to do this now.
Right.
But I think I've told you I eventually would like to teach, but it'd be at a collegiate level because those, like, same thing for you. Those kids want to be there. That's why they're there.
Well,
They're not filling space.
Even then, it's hard sometimes. It's like pulling teeth with them, honestly. Yeah. But you got to learn how to work on their level, and that's.
So as someone who's a collegiate professor, I know this way with like English professors and stuff. Do you still have to do your own work I've never really, that's never clicked in my brain either of how that works.
Yeah. They still expect you to be a working professional to an extent, to be involved and engaged with your field of study or field of teaching. So yeah, I am expected to, exhibit, expected to contribute to, conferences. So yeah, I do have to maintain a practice. So, I still have a studio, I have a studio where I make my work and I make my paintings, and I apply for shows and, I get shows on occasion and, and put my art up.
Do you teach during the summer too, or is it just during the?
No, we don't. I don't teach during the summer.
Okay.
We do certain things, like advising students, recruitment things.
Well, I was just wondering, like, could you do like an immersive program like Aramont or Pinland?
Yeah,
with being a
that's,
teacher.
That's definitely something you could do.
Okay.
Especially like in the summertime. If
Yeah.
you wanted, if something that you applied for, did, or were offered. Yeah. So all those things, doing residencies of the sorts and things like that, that's all kind of expected of you to be involved with the arts and to be engaged in a, because they want people who are out there practicing to an extent. It's probably not as strict, or expectations are probably different in other universities, bigger universities. But we're still expected to be a part of that. We're still expected to exhibit, show, curate, be involved in the art world, be involved in the arts. Or like I said, if you're an English person, be involved in writing books, writing articles, writing whatever, all those kinds of things. So yeah, I am still engaged and involved.
Okay.
It's not a I didn't do this to get out of making art in a way, just to be lazy. But I do see it as a vital part of what I do.
Okay.
Like I said, one of the first day of drawing one class, I was like, wow, this is something I can do. And seeing the way that he engaged with other students, not with me, my professor, Mr. Thrasher there, Professor John Thrasher, the way he engaged with the students who weren't art majors, who weren't artistically inclined or talented. Yeah. I thought that was really amazing how he encouraged them, helped them improve their skill.
Okay.
And that's what I look forward to that as well, is finding those students, who aren't majors, who aren't necessarily looking to do this as a thing, showing them that they have skill, that they can do these things. They can get better at it too.
You're cracking me up, because I'm thinking I still think about this critique all the time. It was in the intermediate color and design class, to where I can't remember how many pieces we did in that class, but let's say we did 8. There's one that she kept and hung up in her office, because she was like, if you're a graphic design student, you can do something in Photoshop. That's totally fine. You don't have to do everything pen and ink or paper or paint. And so I took Clarence Thomas and made him morph into a Coke can. And then I had a piece of hair falling and landing on the Coke can.
Nice.
That everybody was like, is that an actual? I was like, not saying. It was arm hair.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But I was just like, they were like, it's awfully curly. I was like, it is. She was like, this is brilliant. And I was just like, I just did this because it took me 5 minutes in Photoshop. Like, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
This is something, I don't know. And so she kept that hanging up. That was one piece critique that I still can't get over, because I've been surrounded by people who are much better than me my entire life. So I didn't call myself an artist till I was like 35, because I still don't feel. If you listen to the Josh Shorey podcast, you'll hear me say, I am not taken seriously. I don't feel like I'm taken seriously, but I also a lot of times don't feel like I can explain. It's just something in my head I have to get out. I can't write 3 paragraphs on that. So the second critique she gave me, we were supposed to take a piece, paint it. I'm curious how you feel about this as a teacher, and then cut it up and move everything around. So instead of doing that, I just gridded out the sheet and painted different sections of this squishy eyeball. So I was working at Taco Bell, not to brag, but and I painted that, and I worked on it for weeks. And then we had to do a self-portrait. I did it on black paper with colored pencil, and it was like all sports things that I was involved with.
Yeah.
Like there was a basketball goal on the wall, but I was completely, you didn't see me. You saw a jersey and shorts, but you didn't see knees.
Right.
Because I couldn't draw faces and hands. So I just didn't do it. Like I was just
ducked it.
I was just not good at it.
Well, I tell my kids, you're ducking it. Stop
I did.
ducking it.
But the thing that I sat there and worked on forever, and I was like, I'm going at it this different way, because I could just painted the whole thing and then cut it up, but that seemed too easy to me. I wanted to do it a different way. She tore my asshole up about that one. She's like, I've sat here and watched you work on this week. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Awful. Just awful. Ripping into me. Literally same day we did the same critique. And she pointed at my self-portrait and she's like, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life. You don't see you in it. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah. It's not that I can't draw hands or faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not it. And she just went off. I was like, didn't you just kick my ass like 5 minutes ago about that piece that I worked on for weeks? And it was so funny to me. I was like, you were all over the damn place.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is with, I'm always harder on my majors than I am on the other kids, and, I take them aside sometimes. Listen, I was a little bit harder on you today.
Yeah.
It's not because, I expect more from you. And this is what you want to do. I need you to, I need you to start doing more, doing better, take it more seriously. It's a hard thing to do. I think we kind of started half talking about it maybe before we started recording about, I think maybe we just mentioned it. These are the kids that want to be there. Just because they want to be there doesn't mean that they're going to engage all the time either.
Or give maximum effort.
Yeah, because a lot of time, if they want to be there, they have a certain level of skill already.
Yeah.
And they've been able to get away with that level of skill.
I don't know a polite way to say this, but I have portfolio reviewed at UT a few times, and it's expensive to go to UT. And the last one I went to, I looked around and there was one young woman that I went up to the professor afterwards, who I've been friends with for a while. I was like, her, that's it. Out of all 20-something of these students, she's the one. None of these other ones are worth a shit. They're all rich kids that are not here to have to work for it. She went to Fulton. You could see professional practices and everything, and she did. Whereas one dude, he took letters you buy at Home Depot for like your mailbox.
Right.
And put them on telephone poles across the city. And I looked at him. I was like, be an artist. Don't be a graphic designer. Don't get a degree in design.
Yeah.
Don't do that. If you want to be an artist, cool.
That's
be an
conceptual.
artist.
That's great.
I was like,
that's not what this job is.
I was like, that's not what this is going to be. And he was like, okay. I was like, I didn't have the heart to go, you're a rich kid. That's the only reason you're able to do that shit. But that struck me that last time I did a review. I was like, oh, all of you are rich kids.
No, yeah.
Because school's too fucking expensive, right?
Yeah, no. And some of these kids, some of these students, sometimes, even if they're talented, I said they've been able to get away with it for a long time, and maybe you don't have, I don't think they got other pressures, and they're, you're 18, 19, your first time away from home.
Yeah.
It can be, there's a lot coming at you, and I get that. But, I always took it seriously, Looking back on my time in college, I think I could have taken it even more seriously. I wish I would have taken it more seriously at times. I wish I would have done some things differently, but I always did take it seriously. I was, I'd go to the studio, I would work. We would work a long time in the studio. Yeah, did I meet my friends to go out? Yeah, but I'd go paint.
Yeah,
11 o'clock, I'd meet them. With paint on my pants, and we would go to some dingy bar and hang out and
open to see Johnny Thrasher.
Yeah.
Was it Johnny?
What? John Thrasher.
John Thrasher. No, he's Johnny. Sorry, that's when he goes out for beers. He's Johnny Thrasher. So kind of in that vein and being a teacher, is there something you would like to see more of in art?
How? What do you mean?
In the art world, in art, like what's in galleries, what's coming out of student work, anything.
I don't know. I think the art world and the arts it's a big, big place. Anything I say is probably already out there. As a teacher, I just as a teacher, I think what I really, I guess I would want more funding for the arts, more respect for the arts in the institutions. There's cuts everywhere. We don't get funded the way that the engineering schools get funded, or the way that the medical school gets funded. We don't, I'm not saying we need to have that same level of funding necessarily, but I think that the respect needs to be there, that we get comparably sufficient funding, I guess. Here's the thing, right?
Is a college a place for making money, or is it a place for furthering young people's education?
Yeah, well, that's beyond the arts. Obviously, I think we just need to go back to the liberal arts version of things and teach people how to think.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to be this other thing, then you go to graduate school, professional school afterwards. But first, you got to learn how to think first. I think that probably needs to be out there at some place or some space. And I understand, there are certain jobs that can be done in certain ways, but beyond that, I think that here's one thing that my school celebrated its 125th anniversary this year. And what was the first people that got called in to celebrate it was us. They wanted we want to see posters. We want art shows. We want music performances. We want theater performances.
Yeah.
All this stuff. We came through. We did all that stuff, and it's just I wish we would see you don't see billboards for LMU's art program in town. You see it for the nursing program. You see it for the dental school. You see it for for the MBA program, but they don't put the same kind of funding into it. And yes, I know we're a very small program, and maybe it's my job to grow it. But you see that also speaking to my colleagues, or compatriots or ex-teachers at UT. Same thing's happening there. They're always under pressure to increase their enrollment, and they don't get the same kind of money and support. And that's so it's across the country, probably across the world, but the thing is, I'm not saying we don't need doctors and we need those advancements. We've just been through a pandemic, and those vaccines were beautiful and wonderful, and we need more of that all the time. But, when we pull up these ruins, what do we find?
Yeah.
We find sculptures, we find murals on walls, what's the Mona Lisa worth? It's literally priceless. The French government will never sell that. What is the Sistine Chapel worth? Could some sheik go into Rome and buy the Sistine Chapel ceiling? Of course not. That will never be sold. It's literally priceless. The Catholic Church would rather sink into the earth than give that up, right? These are things that bring us together as culture. Great feats of architecture, great feats of art, great feats of music. That's priceless. That's what we remember. We still have Beethoven's music. What did Beethoven's accountant do? I don't know. What did
Beethoven's nurse do?
Not to say they weren't important to life and to Beethoven's life, but we have, like I said, I love technology and I love medical care and all these things that are great. But, I think we have to go back to really respecting the space and place of things like art and music and literature. That respect, I think, is something that we need more of. That's beyond, I guess, specifically the art world. In terms of like teaching my kids, if I had if it's also, we're up, you've been there, it's up in the middle of nowhere. It's, it's hard for them to go see art, an hour drive is a lot for a 19-year-old to come see art and then drive back up in the same night. And, I wish they would take more of that impetus, and I was very spoiled, when I was an undergrad at Ohio State, because, we had a really good program. It was a big program. It's a big school. And we had the Wexner Center there, which is a big internationally renowned museum. We had an actual fine arts library.
Yeah.
We had a separate library just for the fine arts department.
Jeez.
We had a library underneath the Wexner Center, which was as probably bigger than my library at my university now, the actual general library, just for art.
That's
for art
amazing.
history books, books on painting, books on drawing. You know, we had the large scale books that you can get into the stacks and look at. So the big book like that, your big Wyeth book that you have here on the table, those would be available for us. You know, at lunch, I would have my lunch, and between my classes, I would go down there and write papers. But sometimes I'm writing a paper, but I'm going to pull out 3 books so I can take a break and just look at this artist. Okay, I can look up some pop art from the 60s and just look at this book full of these pages of color imagery. You know, this is a 15th century, a book of 15th century, mural paintings. I could just look through that between my breaks. I
hate that to say that's another thing as an adult or even a college kids, we don't take enough field trips.
We don't take enough time, I'm guilty of this too. I'm
even as an adult, like because I was president of AIGA, and I did a print shop tour at Coleman's Printing over here next to Shoney's and High Res, because I wanted to show people. I was like, Coleman's is old school printing. Dude has presses in there that are 100 years old. High Res can print. They can laser etch on a door, on a metal door. They can put a metal door through a machine and laser etch it. I was like, that's crazy. And one person showed up. And I was like, and I asked people, I was like, why did you not come? Well, I had to work. I was like, what did you do in that day that had to be done that day? That your life wouldn't be more enriched by going and doing this shit. I was like, we don't take enough field trips as adults.
No, we don't. And you're right. We don't take advantage, and that's something I need to be better about. I need to be better about even just visiting my friends' studios.
Miss Waller took us to UT, and one of the biggest art things that blew my mind was I was 14 or 15. That we walked out a door and there were these hills that went like that, and she was like, "That's my husband and I's art." And I was like, "What?" She was like, we did that. That's our art. That was an art project of ours. I was like, that's landscaping, Miss Waller. That's not art. It is art. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never thought about that. Like, we don't take enough field trips.
Yeah. And we don't take enough time, I think,
That's why
like I said, I'm as guilty as anybody, and sometimes the things I tell my students to do, and I think to myself, I better start doing that too. I don't, but I'm trying to help them, So,
well, in the last 5 to 10 years, I've gotten to go speak at a lot of schools, like elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, all over, and it's the best because I know for those kids, they're like, we're getting a break. We don't have to do class today. And this person's going to come in and talk to us and talk to them like they're little adults, not talk to them like they're kids.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best. I love it because it's different. Okay. Do you know what you would like to do in the next 10 years?
Goodness. 10 years, man. That's a good question. I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't know. I probably need to be better at planning at these things. I think that it's you get that. I've gotten to that place right now where I've been slammed with tasks and information and things that need to be done, and I have found it hard. Actually, I'll be honest, to do artwork.
Yeah.
I've been pushing myself back into doing it. Not to say that I haven't done anything, but I've not done as much as I needed to be doing, as much as I want to be doing. So yeah, I want to be making more art. I want to find a place where I'm making more art. Get my, I don't know, I hate this word, but get my career, my art career. I'm doing the air quotes there for the listening public. Get my career back on track in a way. I was having a lot more regular shows up to about 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've had shows. I just haven't had as many regular shows as I was participating in. The
Also
work,
had a pandemic in there.
yeah. There was a pandemic. Right before that, my grandmothers had passed. I didn't realize at the time how it affected me. I don't think. But that kind of threw me off my game to an extent, and I'm finding it again, which is good, which is a good thing. I'm making more work, more interesting work, and I just need to do more of it. In 10 years, I want to be making more. I want to keep making work. That's really all I want to do. The teaching thing is great. I love it. And I want to keep doing that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Is there a museum or magazine where you'd like to see your work published or hung?
Probably. There's a few places in the back of my head. I don't want to jinx it.
Okay.
I know there's a place in Columbus, Ohio that I've always wanted to show at. When I was in college, I always thought it'd be great to show there.
I'm heading up there. Do you want me to take that painting
Just
of
take
yours
it
I
with
got
you.
and just
Just
hang
put it
it
up on the wall. So there's a
I'm big. They won't stop me. I'm hanging up really high.
I'm not getting that ladder out.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it up there. Nothing in particular. It's that gallery's more of a half dream. I think I'm kind of just even aging out of it. I think it's more of a younger person's artist kind of face. But, I would like to just show more anywhere, really. I don't care. I'm be a barnstorm, like a old school barnstorming baseball team. I'll show anywhere. But yeah, I think that I want to. What I would like to do is get connected to those spaces, and I really like showing in academic spaces, because it combines that exhibition of work and that teaching aspect that I like. Because typically, when you do those kinds of shows, they bring in the students to talk to. You get to, I showed my work last year. Last year I showed my work at Walter State. And then I also spoke to the students there, and I also showed my work at Carson Newman and spoke to the students there as well. So that was really nice. And a few years ago, I showed my work at Eastern Indiana University.
Oh, wow.
And I also got to speak to the students there as well. And that was really great, because one of the things, I think that one of the things that's great about that kind of stuff is they pay attention to you more a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're talking to your own students, at a certain point you become
Charlie Brown
teacher, because in a sense you become just kind of their parents in a way. And you don't listen to your parents, and you listen to your coach who told you the exact same thing your parents told you, and it makes more sense, I guess. You know? So I've seen it with my students when we have a visiting artist come in and they talk to them about their work, or they can just come and talk to them about about the art that's being shown. And they say something that I've been telling them over and over again. And then they look over at me. They're like, you can see it's like, damn it.
Yeah.
He's not wrong.
For them, it's like, we've heard this.
We've heard this
crap.
We've heard it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, so that helped, and I hope that when I say these things to their students, they get a bit like, oh yeah, my teacher also told me that.
Right.
Maybe they're not so dumb, and maybe and maybe I need to pay more attention. Because I think when you come in as this artist from someplace else, you know, they don't know anything, so that you seem kind of exotic and successful, I guess. I don't know, because so I like that kind of aspect, and I guess I'd like to be more of that. So that's my answer for the 10-year question.
Okay,
doing more of that stuff.
So here's the final question. This is a big one. If you could talk to the 14-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell them?
Oh my God. So much. So much.
Invest in Apple.
Yeah, right. Trust in yourself more. Be more confident in yourself more.
Okay.
And you're not all, stop trying to impress whomever you're trying to impress. That would be probably my. I probably need to say it to myself now, even, trust in myself more, be more confident in myself, and stop trying to impress people. Don't worry about it. Just do your stuff. Take opportunities. Yeah, something that's in a way it's kind of what I want to do the next 10 years.
Okay.
Take that opportunity to do things, and yeah, I think 14-year-old me needed to be more confident.
Okay. Well, thank you for
sure.
being on.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.